Very warm welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. It is the 1st of December, and I'm not quite sure how we got to this point. Somehow time has flown. This is our last Digital Mastermind with James Oakley Media this year. It's a series of events that we've been running once a month to help our community really get on top of their digital strategies and understand how to maximize their return on investment in terms of their digital marketing spend. For so many businesses, the digital arena has become more and more important. It is something that we cannot ignore, and therefore we really need to be on top of how we are spending our money and making sure that we're getting a return on that investment. Today, we're being joined by two of the James Oakley Media team members. We've got Michelle Robbertsen, who's the head of SEO for James Oakley Media, and we've got Amy Lawrence, who heads up their digital strategy. So thank you very much, both of you, for joining us today. I know we've got Michelle joining us from the Netherlands. Amy is in the UK. And then we have Taron on my team, who you might not be able to see, who's actually based in South Africa. So we're joining you from all over the world today. And I'm from not so sunny Guildford. It's quite cloudy and blustery outside today. For those of you that are just joining us, please keep your microphones on mute so we can minimize background noise. And if you've got questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. We'd like these sessions to be really interactive, but of course, no pressure either. If you want to save your questions for the end, you can do that. And equally, after this, I will send out a roundup with the link to the recording, as well as contact details for both Amy and Michelle. So if you've got questions, you're welcome to get in touch with them to take the conversation further. So again, thank you so much for joining us, both of you. Michelle, can I hand over to you, because I believe you're going to be leading the presentation today, and hopefully everybody can see the screen sharing and the start of the slides. Michelle, over to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, Michelle. And thank you everyone for joining. We're going to talk about what questions you should be asking your digital team to ensure you're maximizing your online ROI. And before we get started and we'll dive in deeper, I first wanted to, I can't move to the next slide. 1 minute, really sorry about that.
Don't worry.
Let's try that again. It seems not to be working. Okay. I'll just scroll down instead. I have to improvise. So a little bit about James Oakley Media. As you can see, James Oakley, he was supposed to be on this call, but his girlfriend actually went into labor early this morning, 2 weeks early. So he will not be joining today. So instead, Amy and I will be running you through everything. So if you have any questions, please let us know. And Amy, would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Amy. I look after the digital strategy for James Oakley Media and all of our clients. I've been with James for about 2.5 years now. So my role sort of looks at, we look at customer journey, buyer personas, building digital strategies from blog content through to email campaigns, social strategy to really maximize ROI and looking at all the options that we have, from new strategies through to old, what really works for your brand. And yeah, it's been great fun so far. I'm really excited today to share some tips with you guys. And yeah, any questions you have, feel free to send them over. But yeah, over to you, Michelle.
Thank you. So I'm Michelle Robbertsen. I am the head of SEO at James Oakley Media, and I've been working with James for a little bit over a year right now. I am responsible for anything that has to do with SEO. So that is content, website optimizations, but also the backlink strategies for our clients. So on a daily basis, I am working hard to get our clients to the top results in Google. On a daily basis, that is really fun, and I hope to share some great insights with you today. Just a little fun fact about all of us. Obviously, James isn't here, but he is literally the biggest fan of tennis. He also has started his own company, Paddle Paddle Paddle. I really like to watch Formula One on my weekends to stress myself out with the championship. And Amy, she's a lover of all things that have to do with skincare, which comes in handy with our clients as well. So moving on to this, what will you be learning today? So during this webinar, we're going to talk about the things you should be considering when you first start working with a digital team, whether you are thinking about working with a digital team or you have just onboarded a digital partner. This webinar will be really relevant to you, as we'll be running through the important questions you should be asking to ensure that you are maximizing the ROI. So yeah, the next thing is what you should be asking your digital team to achieve the best results. And finally, how you can maximize your ROI by being proactive towards your digital team. Before we talk about the questions you should be asking, you may wonder why a digital partner can be helpful and what they can actually help you with. The options are actually endless, but I've included a couple of them on this slide. A digital partner can help you with building a digital strategy for your brand, modifying your website to your clients' needs, but also creating an SEO strategy to help you perform better on Google. They can help you gain brand awareness, set up ad campaigns, creating and carrying out a relevant content strategy, and filling in skill gaps that your team is currently lacking. So if you don't have the skills on board, a digital partner is really great to help you to get to that point in marketing that will allow you to increase your revenue and see your ROI grow. All right, so if you are thinking about getting a digital partner on board, or you've just started working with one, then it's really important to ask the right questions at the start. This is because expectation management is extremely important, and that is why you should be asking, when can I expect to receive results? When can I expect to see ROI? But also, if the ROI is currently negative, what will we be doing to get to a positive ROI, and when do we expect to see that? One thing that is that's really common is that the brand and the digital partner don't really align on when they expect to see results. So it's important to remember that based on your goals, but also on the channels you're working on, this can differ. So for PPC, for example, if you get a digital team on board to help you to set out ads and do ad campaigns on Google or Facebook, the results can be quite immediate, because on PPC you can create an ad campaign, push some budget towards it, and you will see results within a couple of days. Whereas with SEO, for example, it takes a longer time, even up to 3 months, before you start seeing results. So it's really important to ask these questions to your digital partner to make sure that you're on the same page, but also to make sure that you know when you can start tracking if your digital partner is doing a good job, because obviously that is important too, and you want to make sure that you're on the same page on that one.
And Michelle, can I just chip in to say, can I assume, or can we assume that all of this, all of these kind of expectations and I guess milestones that we set for ourselves in terms of the digital strategy would apply to whether you're bringing someone onto your team to look after your digital strategy, or even if you're doing it yourself, how to sort of manage your own expectations in terms of what the roadmap is for your return on investment?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, whether you are working with a digital partner that is a third party, or you have a digital team on board, or you're doing it yourself, these questions will apply in all cases, because it's important for yourself to be able to track results, to know when can I actually start seeing results. So yeah, it's definitely relevant for whoever is doing your digital activities, whether that's yourself or a team you have onboarded. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I think one of the sort of challenges I think we hear consistently across our community, our founder community, is the people they build digital strategies and they put things in place, but they don't see a return fast enough, and that can be really frustrating. And it also might mean that you might abandon what you were doing possibly too soon because you're not seeing results as fast as you hope to. And I guess with this, as you were talking about, when you're putting paid campaigns in place and pay-per-click and that kind of thing, that you can see results much faster, but there are different timeframes for the different elements of your strategy in terms of when you will start to see a return on those.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is also important to remember is that when the ROI is negative, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that your digital team or yourself are doing a bad job. There are a lot of factors that can influence your ROI as well, such as competitors. You may have a lower budget than your competitors, which results them to bid higher on PPC, which causes your ROI to come out lower. But also trends in the market or anything that has to do, like can impact marketing, those things can affect your ROI as well.
Brilliant, thank you.
All right, moving on to the next slide. Next, when it comes to reporting, once you know when you can start seeing results, of course, you want to see the results as well. And it's really important to make sure that your digital partner knows what your preferences are when it comes to reporting. If you are new to marketing or you are not someone who is really familiar with figures, you might feel comfortable with visualized reporting. So that may look something like this, where you can quickly see how your digital partner is performing. As you can see in the graphs that I've included, just as an example, immediately you can tell that November has been a better month than October. So there will still be digits included, but it is a really visual presentation of the results, which is really simple and easy to understand. And it's important to focus on the return on investment to make sure that you're, as a brand, you know what the return on investment actually is. So what your digital partner is actually meaning to you. So yeah, it's really important to communicate your preferences. Also let your digital team know what stats or insights you may need. So let's say you have to report to someone above you, your CEO, or you want to share the report with your intern or your colleagues from marketing. Then it's really important to have the right stats or insights included. So if there's anything that you need to know, just make sure that you tell your digital partner so they can customize your report and make sure that that is included. And then for the frequency, this is also something that completely depends on what you're comfortable with. If you want to have weekly reports or monthly reports, that is obviously a big difference, but whatever you're comfortable with, just communicate it to your digital partner. Something we do at James Oakley Media is we send monthly reports that are really extensive. It includes all the stats you will ever wish for. And it really shows what we've been doing in the past month, but we also send weekly updates on the email just to make sure that our clients are up to date with what we're doing. If they have any questions or if they want to see something change or have additional things they want to talk about in marketing, then they can add that during the month. And that's an easy way to keep in touch with your digital team or your client to make sure there are no confusion or misunderstandings.
Okay, brilliant.
One thing I'd actually add as well here is making sure you're doing comparative data. So if that's the previous month, the previous quarter, even going back further than that, you can do like a 3-month comparison just to look at sort of where you've come from and the progression you'll be able to see over time. It's always great to have new stats in there and new things you can look at, but for SEO, for example, as Michelle said, that's something that comes across over a couple of months. So if you have like a 3 to 6 month comparison, you'll be able to see a lot more progression and changes in your keyword rankings, for example, than you would if it was just last week's data compared to this week's. So it's really important to speak to your digital team or your marketing exec or just a checklist for yourself, really, to include that as something for your reporting. I'll make sure it's consistent every month or every week. You're looking at the same data, so you're not confusing things with 2 weeks here and then you're looking at a month on the next report. Just have it consistent so you can check back and look back at what you've done. I think that's a really important thing that a lot of people don't look into as much. Those reports are they're there forever now. You've got them. You can look back and see what you did last year and how far you've come from there. So yeah, that's something I'd add.
Thank you. Were there any questions on this slide?
Anyone got any questions you want to pop in the chat? Feel free to do that as we go along, and then we can either integrate them into the conversation or we can ask them at the end. No, not yet.
All right, perfect. Then I'll move on to the next slide, which is discuss how much you actually will be involved to achieve the best results. So if you start working with the digital team, so you're deciding to not do it yourself, but hand it over to a digital agency, for example, it is important to know how much you want to be involved in the process. So what level of control are you comfortable with? Some brands will be fully confident and they will say, we don't need to approve anything. You can go ahead and publish the content you're writing or make the edits to the website that will help SEO. But other clients or brands, they will want to have control of their content. And obviously we understand that because it's your brand and you know your brand like no other. And it's really important to communicate about this right at the start when you first start working together, because it's important to know how much control you actually want to have. One important thing to remember is that the more control you have over your content as a brand, the more time it will take to actually publish the content or make any edits. And that means that the results may be a bit slower as well. If you give your digital team full control, full confidence, then that might mean that your results will be achieved quicker. But yeah, there is no right or wrong in this. It's really about what you're comfortable with, and partial control is also possible. So you might sign off some blogs, but not, you won't have to approve ads, for example. So that's completely up to you. It's just important that you discuss this with your digital team.
This is also something that I think can be great to do at the start when you're first having that conversation with your digital team. With weekly check-ins and things, maybe set some time aside each week to be able to make those approvals or sign off some website changes. Having it all in one place for you to do at a certain time makes the whole process a lot quicker. And it's just an easier way. You get into the rhythm of things, and then your results you'll be able to see quicker as well.
Absolutely.
So in terms from a client side perspective, my question here would be, because say, for example, from a women's chapter perspective, like I'm really particular about our voice, the way that we come across, the kind of kind of copy, the tone of voice that we use. How is it best to work with an agency in that sense? So you're not holding them up because you're being very precious about the way that your brand is being presented. Would it be to provide you with a style guideline, or to give kind of a full briefing and some examples of the kind of copy you really like? I mean, what is the best way for a brand to work with you when they are really particular? And I mean, in my mind, all brands should be particular about their voice and how they're being presented. But what's the kind of happy medium then to make sure we're not holding you up, but at the same time, we're happy with what's going out there about us?
Yeah, that's completely a great point. And I think the best way to overcome that would be from the get-go, have a brand guidelines or a style guide or a tone of voice document that you are comfortable with, and that's your brand. And that's, if somebody was coming in from the outside, they'd look at that and go, yeah, I know exactly what your brand is about. I know exactly the tone of voice, who your customer is, do's and don'ts are things that we ask for. the get-go when we work with clients. And there is always the approval process at the beginning. And then if the client then becomes more comfortable and you feel that we've grasped that tone of voice, then it's something that you may drop and you go, oh yeah, I don't need to approve that anymore. I'm comfortable with that. But yeah, it's all to do with what you're comfortable with, and having something from the get-go, like a document that you can send over and say, this is everything. Here are our rules, basically. There you go. Have a look at that and come up with the content and website changes based off of that. Is the best way to do that, I'd say. Michelle, is that what you would say?
Yeah, no, exactly what you were saying about not having to decide this at the start. Some clients may be comfortable with giving approval in the beginning and then later on slowing down the approval process. So that may mean that you want to approve all content that goes out for the first 1 or 2 months. But once you see that the digital team is starting to get your tone of voice, they're starting to understand your way of writing or your way of approaching the client, then that might mean that you are getting more confident about your team, sorry, about your team doing this for you instead. So you might want to say, okay, from this point, we will approve less things and you will have full control of the content. So that is something, it doesn't have to be set in stone right from the start. It is flexible, and whenever you want to approve something, that is absolutely fine with us. And yeah, it's just what you're comfortable with. That's really important.
Brilliant, thank you.
Any questions, or shall I move on to the next
slide?
I
think let's move on to the next one.
All right, perfect. This is just to remember that perfection is the enemy of done. Obviously, this applies to the last slide, that perfection can really cause a delay in content and things going live. So yeah, perfection is the enemy of done. I think that's a good one to remember. Next, it's really important to be proactive with your digital team. Of course, your digital team will create a marketing calendar, a blog schedule. They will be very happy to be active on what they're doing. But if there's something that you want to do marketing wise, for example, then it's your turn to shout, and you may have to do that to be heard. Your digital team always checks in with you to make sure that it's still in line with what you want. But let's say you want to push a product with a discount next week, and you're wondering if that's possible, then you should be asking your digital team, because obviously they won't know about these discounts that go on and that are planned spontaneously. So it's really important to let them hear yourself, basically, and make sure that you're proactive. So if anything has to be changed or has to be added, just let them know so they can act on that.
Brilliant. No, and I think, you know, you were talking about the content calendars and kind of being really aware of what's coming up. And I think, you know, the likes of Black Friday or Christmas, you know, I think we're all realizing more and more each year that the planning for these times of year start earlier and earlier, and really to maximize on them and embrace them, you have to be organized. And I think that's, you know, part of that is also briefing in whoever you're working with on your digital strategy to make sure that they're on board, and that then is consistent across your social media and all of the other, you know, channels that you're working across.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think one thing to remember is your marketing team also goes hand in hand with PR. That also goes hand in hand with if you have a separate team for ads, so that's Facebook and Google, so that's PPC and that's organic marketing, and they all go hand in hand. So to have something that we do with a lot of our clients is we call it like a master workflow, where we have everything all in one place. So the PR agency will also have access to this, and we can see across the year everything that's planned out and everything that's going live, so that we all know what's going on at the same time. So that'll be email content, blog content, any offers that are going live. Obviously Black Friday any influencers we're working with for PR, we can really make the most of that information. Don't be afraid to share that, because it's their job to work together, the digital team and other parts of your company.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Then next, when this is slightly has to do with reporting, but when you have your weekly or monthly calls with your client or with your digital team, make sure that their experts are on the call as well. We often find that brands are talking to the account manager, which are then communicating it to the expert who will start working on the actual brand. But it's so important to speak directly to who is responsible for your brand and who is actually doing the work, because this will help you to understand why certain choices were made. This will allow you to ask certain questions about why, for example, you've made this ad instead of that. And yeah, it allows you to hand your direct input for future campaigns to the right person. So you won't have to have a multi-step of speaking to the account manager who will then forward it to someone else. It is important to speak to the expert who is actually working on your brand. Amy, I'm not sure if you have anything to add on that.
Yeah, I feel like this just speeds up the whole process. And it's also great to put a name to a face, because these are the people that are actually making the changes to your website or writing that blog content. It is nice just to understand where they're coming from decisions that they've made within content, or if you want a change to be made, you're speaking directly to them, so there's no hold up of anybody in between. I think that's a really nice way of working. And yeah, your digital agency or your digital team, make sure that everybody's in the room when you're talking about weekly or monthly updates. Make sure you're speaking to the person that is making those changes.
Yeah, and that might mean you're having calls with 8 people in the room, and that might seem like a waste of time. But if you're reporting on SEO and PPC in the same call, you want to make sure that both your SEO expert, but also your PPC or ads expert is in that call. And yeah, make sure that the people who are on your team, like as a brand, that they are available for calls as well. So if there's someone who has more to do with marketing than someone else, then prioritize that they are on the call as well. So it's from both sides to make sure that, yeah, the process runs smoothly and no time is lost, basically.
Thank you. That's brilliant. That's really good advice, actually, because I think from a brand's perspective, I think many of us would think you would allocate an account manager and that's your point of contact. Yeah. But to know that you really should be saying, actually, I want everyone in the room where I communicate this change or what we want, or when you're getting, when you're having reporting, I think that's really, really helpful to know that we should be asserting ourselves and asking for that.
Absolutely.
Cool. Let's move on to the next one.
Yes, perfect. We quickly touched on this. I think, Michelle, you mentioned this, but future event planning is also really important. So let's say for Black Friday and Christmas, it's not unusual that we start planning this in July, and that might seem like it's ridiculously early, but there are so many things to consider with these campaigns because they're really big, and you want to make sure that they are done properly. So that's why, you should be asking your digital team, okay, what has been planned and when do we start planning? Because if you do this in July, you don't have the stress of Christmas campaigns in November when you should be focusing on Black Friday. So this way you're avoiding being late with special offers or changes, and you will make sure that you can maximize your ROI because you're well prepared and you know what is going out. And that also leaves a lot more room for creativity. You don't want to rush into things, especially things like Black Friday and Christmas campaigns where a lot of revenue can be made, of course. So yeah, it's important to discuss that with your team, but also if you are more flexible as a brand, let your digital team know that you may be sending them, for example, a discount or something you want to promote pretty ad hoc, so that they know they should be aware of that and they can anticipate on that.
Brilliant.
Then ask your agency if they are aware of your specific goals. This is something that should be done right at the start, but it is also important to keep highlighting your goals throughout your collaboration with a digital team, or whether that's in-house, because they have to know what your goal is, because that will change how they act. So for example, you have a few different channels you may be focusing on. If it's SEO, you may say, all right, my goal is that after 6 months, I want to rank in the top 3 for 10 important high volume keywords. That is a goal. But if your goal on SEO is, for example, that you want to increase your domain rating to make sure you rank higher, then that is a different goal that should be acted differently upon. And that applies to PPC as well. So you may say, all right, I want to focus on the return on investment and get a minimum ROI of 4. But if your focus is more on revenue, if you say, all right, I want to increase revenue with 10%, that is a completely different goal, of course, and that will require different actions. And if you look at social and email as well, you will see that that is different. Let's highlight email. If your goal is to have 1,000 new email subscribers, for example, within 3 months, that's a completely different goal than gaining an increase of 2K revenue per month. And that will require a different approach, because if you want new email subscribers, you want to push on getting those people to subscribe to your emails. So you may want to push it on your website or on your Instagram. Whereas if you want to increase revenue, you might want to make your actual emails appear nicer or make them more attractive to the client. So it's really important to know your specific goals, but also an overall goal. So is that increasing traffic? Is that gaining more inquiries or increasing revenue? And if it's ROI, then it's really important to communicate that with your digital partner so that they know what you want to achieve, and so that they know what assets they can use to achieve your goal.
And my question around these would be, because I'm assuming that these are sort of 4 pillars of your digital strategy.
Yeah.
What about from a budget perspective? If you're just starting out with the digital strategy, which one should you focus on first? Because there is a cost associated with activating each one of these. And I'm assuming things like pay-per-click is going to be more than what it would cost you to implement an SEO strategy, because that's a longer game. And the same with email. Yes, there is, if you're doing any advertising around that, there's a cost per acquisition. But if you were sort of, if we were talking to a startup brand, and then maybe if you can give an example for a brand that is already quite well established and is now looking to scale, what should they be focusing on for their respective businesses?
Yeah. As the head of SEO, I can, of course, give only one right answer. No, that really depends. If you have a low budget, then you may want to stay away from PPC at first. It is, of course, important to remember that PPC will have faster results in SEO, so you may put more money towards it, but it will also help you to see results quicker. Mm-hmm. But if you're starting out, it's really important to have a website that is visually attractive to your client, but also to have that website rank high in the Google rankings. Now, this is really difficult if you are starting out, and this may take a lot of time. You may not get this done by 3 months, but SEO is definitely something that should be focused on right from the start, especially if you want to make sure that within a year or 2 years' time, you are performing well in the Google rankings and you are claiming those top 3 positions for all the keywords in your industry. But also social is a way to gain more engagement and gain more revenue, hopefully, in a way that doesn't necessarily have to include budget. Yeah, Amy, do you have things to add on this?
Yeah, I think it's really important to start that conversation with yourself, your digital team, with who your customer is and where they are shopping. So if you have a younger demographic, social is going to be really important to you. So that could be Instagram, Facebook for an older demographic, maybe. You've now got things like TikTok coming through. If you're going to be doing influencer campaigns on there, that's also another avenue that you could look at. But I think it always starts with the customer and where they're going to be looking for you. So if you're a service brand and you have a lot of keywords, a lot of people are searching for your service generically, that's going to be something that you really want to look at, and that comes under SEO. So you'd want to optimize your website to make sure that you have those keywords present. Also, something we do with a lot of clients when we first work with them, this is startup company all the way through to bigger brands as well, is we like to run like a background site audit. So this looks at the behind the scenes of your website, how well it's working. So this could be, we look at broken pages on your website, 404 errors that are coming through, how fast the website is. Mobile optimization is also really, really important. So to get your site health up, taking a look at those areas with a website developer, or if you have the know-how yourself and it's just a one-man band, that is definitely something to educate yourself on, because it's really important that Google sees you as a healthy website, something that's appealing to the people that are making those searches. And yeah, I think PPC is something that you can go into after you've established your website and you have that groundwork. Then you can look into campaigns through ads as well.
Brilliant, thank you. That's really good advice, because I think sometimes this is a minefield when you're just starting out, or you're realizing the importance of your digital presence. And it can kind of feel like once you start digging into, you know, whether that be the back end or whatever, it can feel quite overwhelming. And then when you sort of add whatever you might need to spend in terms of budget to activate each of these pillars, it can be intimidating and equally frustrating. You know, I think even in the early days of the women's chapter, I remember us like trying to do Facebook ads and things and just eventually abandoning it because either they didn't get approved or we were, you know, spending money and we weren't seeing any return. And I think, you know, somewhere along the line, everybody's had a bad experience with their digital strategy, or where they've spent money that they haven't seen a return on. So I think it's really good, the idea of setting goals, and maybe that's something all of us can do for 2022 is, you know, take 10 minutes to think about each of these 4 pillars and what we really would like to achieve in that sense, even if we're not activating it right away. To be thinking about ultimately what you would like to see and the performance you would like to see in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a great goal for us to all look at this for 2022. Yeah, I definitely agree what you say. It can be really overwhelming if you first start out doing marketing or digital stuff. Then it can be really difficult to know where to start off with. So yeah, it's really important to have those specific goals and to determine for yourself what you want to get started on. So what's most important for you and your brand, to get that moving.
Brilliant. And just in case anyone's wondering, you will get access to these slides, so don't worry about that. If there's anyone kind of feverishly taking notes, we'll send you a link to these afterwards. Okay, Michelle, do you want to move on to the next one?
Absolutely. So finally, what you can ask your digital team is to show you examples of previous or current clients they're working with. And this allows you to have a clear example of what your digital team could do for your own brand. So if you see, for example, the ads for Center, that is a client we work with, it allows you to see, okay, so this is what they could do for me. And you can decide, all right, well, this is something that I do like to do, or if there's things you don't prefer to do, then that is completely open to discuss. It's really important if you start working with your digital partner, like I think that's a general takeaway from this webinar. It's really important to discuss your preferences and let them know what you would like to see that is achieved, what your goals are, how you want your brand to be represented in the media. And I think that's a really important takeaway, that it's not set in stone how your digital partner works for you. And even if they show you examples of clients they have worked with previously, that doesn't mean they will implement that same structure for your brand, because of course your brand is unique. So it is important to have a unique digital strategy as well. And that is something to definitely take in mind, and to start looking for that if you are looking for a digital partner, that it is someone who is willing to be flexible around those things that are important to you.
And does the same go for kind of, obviously as part of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities analysis, knowing who your competitive set is and looking at what they're doing digitally? And, you know, do you welcome that when people come to you with examples of what their competitors are doing and saying, I see they're doing this, or they keep popping up here, or they're using this mechanic, like how does that work and can I do that? Do you have clients coming to you with those kinds of questions?
Yeah, 100%. We've had that before, and I think that's really important to look at what are your competitors actually doing. Because of course it's amazing to take away examples from different industries, or if you come across an ad on Instagram yourself and you're like, okay, that's a great idea, then those are things that could work really well to design your own content. But looking at your competitors, I mean, they are your direct competitors. You're literally competing with them to gain new clients and increase your revenue. So it's really important to look at your competitors directly to make sure, okay, so what are they doing, and is that working for them, and could that potentially work for us as well? Of course, you have to make sure that it stays on brand. You have a guideline, so it is important to stay like close to your own brand. But if there is something that your competitor is doing and you can like add your own flavor to it, then yes, definitely do it. I would say that would definitely be worth a try.
Because I know that you are big advocates of testimonials and really kind of engaging your client base. And I think that's something that so many brands forget about, the power of that. You know, even just going back to that previous slide, we were talking about that, the pillar of social and how that fits into your digital strategy. And the key part of that is really kind of building and engaging your audience and your tribe, really. But I think, you know, I know Centre does this a lot with their testimonials and getting client feedback and sharing that, that we shouldn't shy away from reaching out to our audience and asking them to tell us how much they love what we do, and then sharing that and using that as content, because then that really is unique to you. And you may be using a similar mechanic to what, you know, your competitors are doing, but ultimately that content is unique to you because it's feedback from your own customers and clients.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are always like-minded people who are buying from your brand. Of course, you will have different audiences that you attract, but looking overall to your audience, you will probably see that there are a lot of people who are alike. And that is something that really helps when you're doing the testimonial. So for example, if you use a testimonial in an ad, like we've done on this slide, people might recognize themselves in it, or they may have struggles that they are dealing with. And for example, the Centre bombs may offer a solution to that. So it's really important to find the testimonials that could work for your customer base. Amy, what did you want to say?
No, yeah, I was just going to say that's a really great point. I think looking at customer surveys and even things like interactive content on your website, like a quiz or a bundle builder of products, even small things like that will enable you to understand your customer better, what they're buying together, what they think they want to buy in a bundle. It's just a really quick way of understanding how they shop, and which products they want to buy together. With Centred, something we do is the blend finder, which is something we've introduced on the website. So you answer a series of questions about how you want to feel, and how you're feeling at that moment, and what you want to achieve through this. And it's really interesting, because with the different scents that Centred have, so we've got like the Sleep Well Balm and the De-Stress, for example. The people that are coming up with the answers for the Sleep Well Balm, they are having all these issues with sleep, but they are also showing signs of stress, which is really interesting. So you can see how somebody that is interested in the Sleep Well Balm might also be really interested in the De-Stress too. So things like that to get to know your customer is really important. And then, yeah, as Michelle said, you can use this across email marketing. You can use that within ad copy or social media posts to engage, and other clients and customers will feel that they see something in themselves, and they're invested, and they can understand your brand better. So yeah, that's really important, I think.
Brilliant, thank you. Cool, I think we're moving on to the next one, and we're almost at the end.
Is this
So if anyone's got questions, you have to think of them quickly. That's been really, really useful. Thank you so much, both of you. Does anyone have any questions that they want to pop in the chat or ask about this? I mean, this has obviously been very focused on sort of really making sure that you're getting return on investment and what to ask your digital marketer or your team. But as Michelle quite rightly said, you know, that applies to whether or not you're working with a third party like James Oakley Media, or if you have just taken on someone in-house to drive that for you, or if you are doing it yourself, which I think many brands in the very beginning do start out doing that. And one of the key things I think that always comes out when I ask different founders and professionals in our community for advice, it's always to surround yourself with experts and people who can do what you can't do, so to fill those gaps in your skill set. So I think many people who start out doing it themselves, yes, there are a few, you know, there are a few definitely that do it very successfully. But I think in our case, for example, it became something that was a major frustration, and we realized that actually, in terms of the time we were spending on it, it made far more sense to outsource it to an expert, where we could get a much better return on our investment. So, but for anyone, you know, regardless of the stage of your business or the business that you work for, those of you that are joining us today, feel free to ping over any questions that you've got. I'll connect everyone with email via email afterwards, and you will have access to both Michelle and Amy's details. So you can mail them directly if you've got any questions. And also, as a benefit to the Women's Chapter members, James Oakley Media do an introductory audit of your website. So if that's something that you're interested in, just to give you some feedback as to where you are and some areas that you might need to look at, it's really, really helpful. So I would advise you to get in touch about that as well. Thank you both so much. Do you have any kind of closing points, or do you think we've covered everything?
From my point of view, I think we've covered most of it. I'm not sure if Amy has things to add.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for having us. This has been great. And I hope that you got something that you can take away, or something that you're going to try or implement. And this has been helpful for you. So any questions, obviously, ping them over to myself or Michelle. Would be more than happy to help with anything.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to all of those who joined us this morning. I will follow up with an email with a link to the recording as well as to the slides, and email addresses for both Michelle and Amy. And if I don't get to see some of you, I know I'm seeing some of the Women's Chapter members on Friday for lunch, and they're getting little scented treats actually. So I have a whole box of scented bombs downstairs on my dining room table. But if I don't get to see you before the Christmas period, or before we're really properly close to Christmas, have a wonderful festive season. Be safe, everybody. We seem to have been plunged back into a level of chaos. So hopefully we all get to have a relatively normal Christmas period and get to see our loved ones. So thank you both for joining us. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you
so much for your time.
Bye.